Who here in the chat actually thinks I can cook? Okay, here comes the nose. Is this a serious question? Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Giri's Kitchen. This week we're going to make Korean noodles, we're going to make jjajangmyeon and jjamppong, which are two very commonly seen dishes in K-pop or very commonly seen in restaurants as well. I'm really excited to make it with you guys. I personally really love noodles, so I can't wait to cook and eat with everybody. So let's get into the cooking. We're going to make jjajangmyeon first, and then we're going to make jjamppong second. Because I think for jjajangmyeon, usually it's pretty common for it to be like a takeout food. So if it's like usually room temperature or a little bit cold, that's not a big deal. It doesn't have to be like hot. I'm going to chop the potatoes into quite thin slices because I'm going to be actually sauteing them in the sauce as opposed to boiling it. So the smaller they are, the easier they will be able to cook down. And then I stack them, and then I cut them into matchsticks, thick matchsticks. And then I'm going to turn the matchsticks around 90 degrees, and then I'm going to cut them into small cubes. So zucchini is also a pretty common, I guess, additive. So same as the potatoes, same idea. I cut them into slices first that are like small-ish, the thickness that you want your cubes to be, and then I'm going to cut them into matchsticks, and then I'm going to cut them the other way. Whatever size that you started with for your veggies, try to keep it about the same so that obviously they cook at the same pace. And then I'm also going to add in cabbage and a little bit of onion as well. Keep laughing. Keep bullying me. Once I tell Oni Mama, Oni Mama, what you guys do to me on a daily basis, you guys are gonna get a spanking.
But Giri, we are into a good solid spanking.
That's the fear. That's the fear. And onion is the last thing that I'm gonna chop into dices.
Hey,
I swear by it.
Hey,
it's very good.
Hey,
yes.
Giri.
Yes.
Important question.
Yes.
Look at this. Pants grab.
Okay, Oni bro, you can turn Chatterino off. This is sliced pork butt. You can do whatever meat that you can. Pork belly, pork shoulder, whatever you want. I'm gonna use half for the jjamppong and half for the jjajangmyeon. If you're not into the meat, then you can substitute it with tofu, no meat, all veggie, whatever you want to do. It's really quite flexible. I'm going to add in the potatoes and the onions. The potatoes are going to take longer to cook because obviously potatoes are a bit denser. I'm going to turn down the heat just a tiny bit, and I'm going to move all the stuffing aside. I'm going to add in a bit more oil, maybe 2 tablespoons worth. This is black bean sauce. You do have to stir it and fry it in some oil before though, to kind of get rid of a little bit of the bitterness that comes with black bean sauce. And then you mix it with the rest of the vegetables, and then you add in water to let it turn it into like a soup kind of thing. I have half a cup of the sauce. This is just a Chinese brand that I got. It was on sale, but any chicken broth will do. So I'm gonna add in like a nice healthy pinch of sugar, and then you can always adjust halfway through. If it's too sweet, then add a little bit more salt or whatever. But I think it should be okay. It should err towards the side of more sweet though. So while this is going, I'm gonna make a slurry. Again, eyeball it. I'm gonna add in 2 tablespoons of water, and then just use like a spoon or chopstick and mix it nicely through and combine. And then we're gonna slowly pour it into the sauce so that it can thicken. So I'm just gonna put in a little bit of the slurry, a little by little. And the reason why is because I don't actually know how much slurry I need to thicken up the sauce. So I'm just gonna add in a little bit first, see how I like the consistency. And if I don't like it, I'll add in more. It's still a little wet for me, so I'm gonna add in a little bit more. Keep in mind, you do need the heat on even a little bit to make sure that the cornstarch can activate. This looks like the thickness that I kind of like. If you draw a line, it won't close up on you, but it moves like lava, like very slow. It looks like lava. If you like it a lot thicker, go ahead and add more cornstarch. If you like it soupier, then go ahead and add less. And just know that as it cools down, it will continue to thicken. So if it's perfect right now, it will get a little thicker or harder as time goes by. So just be really careful when that happens. But the jjajangmyeon is done. We don't need that anymore. I have another pan. This is the equivalent to 1 head of bok choy. I just split it up and I washed it already. And then I'm gonna have a little bit of onion that's gonna be sliced, and a little bit of garlic that's gonna be chopped. I'm gonna have a little bit of pork in the soup as well for a little bit of meatiness, and seafood. I went to the grocery store, the Chinese grocery store. I just got the frozen seafood medley. So it has mussels, crab, fish, and I think octopus or squid, something like that. And it has shrimp as well. I feel like this thickness of the bok choy, just for comparison, is about two fingers thick. This looks very sensual for some reason. So for easy eating, I would probably just cut it down in half and then chop it again the other way just to make sure it's a little easier to eat. For jjamppong, I'm not going to dice the onion. I'm going to slice the onion instead. I think slicing it makes it look a little prettier and also better texture. And then you can just use your hands and kind of separate it a little bit. So it's ready for stir frying. I'm going to do 2 big cloves of garlic. Don't worry about the size. It's all going to go into the soup anyway, so don't worry if it's like some are big, some are small. You won't taste it at the end of the day. This is my wok. I'm going to heat it with a little bit of oil. I'm going to put it on to medium heat. Once the oil is a little bit hot, I'm going to put in the other half of my pork shoulder. And I'm also going to add in the garlic to kind of season the meat a little bit to get rid of any of that like meat stink, I suppose. The meat is more or less done. So I'm actually going to put this into a separate bowl. Keep the oil and everything so you don't lose any of the flavor. And then so we have our cooked meat and cooked garlic. We're going to set that aside. This is important. Everyone listen up. Get your notepads out. It's lesson time. Usually for jjamppong, the reason why it's kind of hard to recreate at home is because if you don't treat the seafood before you make it into the soup, it can turn into that really stinky, fishy, seafoody taste that's not the most pleasant. I realize that jjamppong is supposed to be a seafood soup. However, it shouldn't be overly stanky. You know what I'm talking about? You don't want it to taste like your girl from last night, okay? I mean, if you could, but personally, I prefer like a balance. If you want to prevent it from tasting extra like stanky and seafoody and to taste more like a restaurant, a really good trick is to actually pre-blanch your seafood to get rid of a lot of like that oceany taste, but still preserving the natural taste of the seafood itself. But you're just taking away some of that, like, you know, the seawater and a little bit of that frozen water that gets packed into like the packaging when you thaw out the frozen seafood and stuff like that. It's just to kind of rinse it out a little bit. And another trick is not just to blanch it, but to blanch it with a little bit of chicken powder. Is what I realized. So a little bit of chicken powder or even MSG is enough, I guess, umami to kind of replace any of that like unwanted seafood taste and only leave the taste of the actual ingredient intact. This is just a little bit of water in the same wok that I did the pork in, and I'm going to turn it on high. I'm actually going to season it with a little bit of chicken powder. Nothing else. You don't have to worry about salting it or anything like that. Make sure that you have the water boiling, and you're only blanching it for like a minute or two. So we're not going crazy on it. We're only blanching it a little bit so it can absorb some of that chicken powder flavor and get rid of some of that like nasty water that's been preserved in over time. I'm going to dump the water out. We don't need this anymore. And I'm going to dry the wok a little bit, and then we're going to come back and then we're going to stir fry the rest of the vegetables. So I rinsed out my wok. I'm going to put a little bit of oil inside, or a lot of oil, whatever you want. And I'm going to stir fry the onion and the bok choy, and then I'm going to season it with salt and actually gochugaru. Gochugaru is Korean pepper powder. Beautiful hydration. Pom Pom, where'd you go? Is everybody leaving as soon as Pom Pom leaves? Chat, I swear to God, my chat must look so fucking weird to newcomers. It must be like, why is everybody leaving? Why is everybody praying? Why is everybody having an orgy? Why is everybody Xing? It's just 2 minutes of the same emote over and over again. Bok choy doesn't take a long time to cook down, so we're going to add that last. Gochugaru, you're aiming for 2 tablespoons maybe? Gochugaru is very easy to burn though, so I'm going to add in my gochugaru. I'm going to stir it, but I'm actually going to turn the fire down just a little bit, just to let that slowly cook through a little bit without it potentially ending up charcoaling, you know? I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of sake. If you don't have sake, you can use Chinese cooking wine actually. If you don't have Chinese cooking wine, you can use white wine. If you don't have white wine, you can use mirin. However, white wine and mirin will make it a little sweeter instead of saltier. So I recommend Chinese cooking wine or Japanese sake instead. Now is to get out your notepads once again, okay? Obviously, this is not enough water for like a bowl of noodles. However, the reason why I'm adding in so little is when there's little water and as it's boiling, it can concentrate and pull out all of the flavor from the ingredients a lot easier and concentrate it into a lesser liquid than if you had a lot more. Because if you have a lot more liquid, it takes 1, longer to boil, 2, a lot longer to saturate the whole amount of water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of water, let that boil, let it extract all the flavors of the gochugaru, the meat, the veggies, and let it all seep into the soup base. And then once it kind of evaporates a little bit and becomes a bit more concentrated, we're going to add in a bit more water, let that boil down a little bit again, and add in a bit more water. And I'm going to add in a little bit of chicken powder. It might look like a lot right now, but this is obviously going to be more water by the end of it. It's thickening a little bit. You can see how a lot of the water has kind of evaporated. It's not so thick anymore, or it's not so thin anymore. I'm going to add in the second addition of water. Turn around. Good girl. Stand. Good girl. I was worried she wasn't able to stand because the chair is kind of wobbly. I'm going to add in maybe the last addition. Just a little bit more. I'm going to add in the seasoning, which is soy sauce and oyster sauce. So soy sauce a little bit, half a teaspoon. Oyster sauce, very important. I would say do not replace oyster sauce. Oyster sauce does give you that very unique, sweet, savory umami taste that only oyster sauce has. So try your best not to substitute oyster sauce. And you want to look for about 1 tablespoon, I think. Salt and pepper if you feel like you need salt and pepper. All right, I'm going to put in the seafood so it can go on a slow, on a low boil. My heat is on medium low right now.
A few moments later.
Okay. The soup is done. I'm gonna have one more taste just to see if I need to adjust anything. Oh, the soup is so good. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to set this aside now. And I'm gonna make noodles and prepare a little bit of the julienne cucumber for the jjajangmyeon. Water is on high heat. I'm boiling the noodles. These are Korean wheat noodles. You can use udon noodles if you can't find regular noodles. You can use Chinese Shanghai noodles if you can't find these kind of noodles. Cucumber, I'm going to cut them in on a bias. I kind of want them thin-ish because I think they look prettier thin. I cut them about this thickness, and then I'm just going to lay them flat the other way now. It doesn't have to be all like layered perfectly like in this orientation or whatever. You don't have to. It's easier if it is, but don't worry about it. As long as they're all facing the same way, it's okay. And then just use your knuckles again as the guide so you don't cut your fingers off. Just cut them into the matchsticks that you're looking for. And this is a really easy way of cutting it without having to cut it like sheet by sheet, you know? And then you have nice, beautiful sticks. I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit. I'm going to grab 2 servings of noodle. Put them in there.
Some in chat are wondering how long do you cook these noodles?
Use common sense. Fresh noodles take a shorter amount of time. These noodles are not super thick, so I would say like it's pretty much almost done. We're just gonna heat up the jjajangmyeon sauce just a little bit so it's not so cold, and literally just put it over your noodles. And for a little bit of color, I'm gonna do the cucumber. I'm gonna season it with a little bit of sesame oil. This is the brand that I would always recommend for sesame oil. This is a Chinese brand, but it has the strongest taste and the most amount of flavor. Healthy little drizzle. And a little bit of sesame, and then I'll do the jjamppong. I'm just gonna place the seafood on the top a little bit so it can show off a little bit of the seafood. And here we have the completed meal. We have a jjamppong, which is a Korean Chinese seafood soup noodle, and also jjajangmyeon, which is a Korean Chinese black bean paste noodle. These 2 noodles that are very, very yummy, very, very classic in Korean cuisine. I think it's gonna be really yummy. If you ever do try it and follow the recipe, leave a comment down below. I would love to know how it turned out for you guys. As usual, if you want to see more content from me, I do post very, very regularly, so make sure you like the video, comment like I said, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you're reminded every time I do post something new. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye. Guys, can you not spam the Sonic when I'm trying to make a... Okay, I know I like... Oh my god. Oh my god, that distracted me so fucking hard. I look over, all I see is just Sonics fucking each other.